ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهديه الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. Continuing the talk about matters of the hereafter and what's related to this, we talked last week about, or the week before, about the ending of one's life and how that this is something that is a very important one, that our hearts should be attached to it, because according to one's ending, what's after that is according. So, and there's a hadith and ayat in the Quran that talks about husn al-khatimah or su' al-khatimah, the good ending or the bad ending of one's life. And as they say al-ibra al-khawatim, that what really matters is how a person ends his life. And we heard and we know that a person might live his life in the ghafla and forgetfulness of the purpose of one's life and disobedience and so on. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will for him guidance, and he dies in that state. And the opposite can happen. And it's the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on earth that whoever lives on something, he will die on it, inshallah ta'ala. And whoever dies on something, he will be resurrected on it. There's exceptions, yes, and it's all according to what's in the heart and how we should take the means to be steadfast and to have the istiqamah, the steadfastness on the deen of Islam, because nobody knows when the moment of death will come. So to live in this life with the reality of it, knowing this life is nothing but a passage to the hereafter. It is not created for itself. Anything in it is created for the fulfillment of the purpose of our existence, which is to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. And the real life is the hereafter, not this. This one is not the real life. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah Al-Fajr, when the people would say, يَقُولُ يَا لَيْتَنِي قَدَّمْتُ لِي حَيَاتِي. When a person would regret in the Day of Judgment, would say, يَا لَيْتَنِي قَدَّمْتُ لِحَيَاتِي. I wish I sent forth for hayati, my life. He's calling the life in the hereafter my life. Right? He wished that he would wish then that he sent forth from the deeds from this dunya, from this life, to his life, to the real life. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called it, this is their life. This dunya, it's a lesser, it's a lower level, it's deficient. Nobody can have ultimate joy in it or perfect joy in it. It's always mixed with miseries and sadness and so on, except for the believers when they see everything is by the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created them to test them. So the real joy or the real misery and so on is in the hereafter, not in this life. Inshallah ta'ala, tonight briefly we can talk about matters of the grave. And there are ayat in the Quran and a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that talks about the grave. And the grave is either a state or a stage where a person is punished or is in delight and joy, according again to one's actions in this life and the provisions that we took. A person would take with him to the second or next stage, which is the stage in the grave or in the barzakh. We cannot go through all the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ because of the time. We just mentioned some of them. There's the hadith reported by Imam al-Tirmidhi and others where Uthman radiallahu anhu, whenever he would go by the grave, he would weep till his beard is wet. So it was said to him that you remember or you mention al-Jannah and the hellfire and you don't weep. And you weep from this when you're by the grave. So he would say, radiallahu anhu, Inna Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam qala. Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, Inna al-qabra awwalu manzilatin min manazil akhirah. The qabr is the first manzil, or the first dwelling of the dwellings of the hereafter. فَإِن نَجَى مِنْهُ فَمَا بَعْدَهُ أَيْسَرُ مِنْهُ. Whoever is saved from it, what's after it, it's easier. وَإِن لَمْ يَنْجُ مِنْهُ فَمَا بَعْدَهُ أَشَدُّ مِنْهُ. And if he's not saved from it, meaning that if he's punished in it, what's after it is even more severe. And then also he said, وقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ما رأيت منظرا قط إلا القبر أفضل منه. He said عليه الصلاة والسلام, I've never seen a scene ever worse, a bad scene, unless the qabr or the grave is worse than this. So this is the worst scene ever, except. So this is the worst place, except if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would give the light to the believers and they earn the light and so on. So this is what a person has to be concerned about, and how to send forth our deeds and our actions, and worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and not to be deceived by this life and the adornment things in it, and not to forbid it on us. It's not like we would run to the jungle and to the desert and just leave our homes and our wealth and so on. Nobody would ever say that. And the way the Prophet ﷺ is not like this. But for the hearts to be attached to the hereafter and to be obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and nothing whatsoever will be of any value in this life unless it's only for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the hadith in Bukhari and Muslim, this woman that she used to clean the masjid of the Prophet ﷺ, and one day the Prophet ﷺ, he missed her, he didn't see her, and they told him that she had died at night, and they buried her without informing the Prophet ﷺ. They didn't want to disturb him. So the Prophet ﷺ, he got upset that they didn't tell him, so that he would pray janazah on her and so on. And he asked them, where is her grave? And they told him, and he went to her grave, and the Prophet ﷺ prayed janazah on her after she was buried, which shows that this is valid to happen. If a person misses the janazah prayer, he can go by the grave of the person. If it's not a long period of time, not after a year or two, something that a person missed by a day or two or more, and he comes to the grave. And that's why it's from the sunnah to make the burial as soon as the person dies, and not to wait for relatives and all of this. The concern is for the deceased, not for those who are alive. And if we take this and we focus on this, we will find many things that people innovated in matters of janazah, because they care more about those who are alive more than they care about the deceased, the dead. So we need to be more concerned when someone dies. People need to be concerned about him, not about those who are alive. So what concerns him, what's better for him, is the way of the Prophet ﷺ, because it's all matters of unseen to us. So we have to follow the unseen. So the Prophet ﷺ, when he went to her grave and he prayed the janazah, he said, alayhi salatu wassalam, إِنَّ هَذِهِ الْقُبُورِ مَمْلُوءَةً ظُلْمًا عَلَى أَهْلِهَا. That these qubur, these graves, are full of darkness on its people. وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ يُنَوِّرُهَا لَهُمْ بِصَلَاةِ عَلَيْهِ. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make it light for them by my dua for them. So the dua, definitely the dua of the Prophet ﷺ, there's nothing better than this in the world, right? And who would get a better thing than the dua of the Prophet ﷺ? But if a person missed that because of the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it shows also that, and this is what the Prophet ﷺ will ask the people to do when someone dies, is to make dua. So we should never belittle the dua. And as we heard from the hadith before, it's the worst scene ever. The grave is the worst scene. What would make it light and comfortable and so on and so forth is not what you take with wealth or any physical means in this life. It's nothing but our actions and our deeds and our steadfastness. And if a person is finished and his life is finished, and there's no continuous actions, which is another thing that we have to think of, continuous charity, knowledge to be passed on, righteous offsprings that would make dua, as the Prophet ﷺ said, and the dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the deceased. So the ones that you love and you care about and they died, better than all of these things that people invent, the most important thing is the dua. This is what changes, by the will of Allah, their state in their grave, by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Again, there are many hadith. One of the things of the grave, that it has a daghta, or a squeeze in it, right? As the Prophet ﷺ said in the authentic hadith reported by Muhammad and others, إِنَّ الْقَبْرِ ضَغْطَ لَوْ كَانَ أَحَدٌ نَاجِيًا مِنْهَا نَجَى سَعْدٌ بْنُ مُعَاذ. That for the grave there is a daghta, a pressure, a squeeze in it. And if anyone would be saved from it, it would have been Sa'd ibn Mu'adh radiallahu anhu. That means he himself, even radiallahu anhu, right? That when he died, the Prophet ﷺ said that the arsh of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was shaken by the death of Sa'd ibn Mu'adh. So he's not just a normal person. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was pleased with him, and still the earth would squeeze right on him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best how. But of course, for the believers, this is not a punishment, right? For the disbelievers, this is a punishment. For the believers, this is something, they say it's like not a punishment, so there's no worry for the believers, it's only for the disbelievers. There's the long hadith of Bara ibn Azib, which when we talk about the graves and the punishment of the graves, this is always the hadith to be mentioned. So we can say the hadith, inshallah, try to be brief. And it's important, you probably heard it before, but this is a very important hadith when we talk about matters of the grave. I'll try to say it as brief as I can, inshallah ta'ala, where Al-Bara ibn Azib radiallahu anhu, he said that we went out with the Prophet ﷺ in a janazah of a man from Al-Ansar, and when we reached the grave, and they were waiting for him to be put in the grave, the Prophet ﷺ sat down, and he said, and we all sat down around him, كَأَنَّ عَلَى رُؤُوسِنَا الطَّيْرِ, as if there is a bird on top of our heads, meaning without any movement, very silent, very not moving and so on. And of course the death and the situation of the death and the grave and so on makes the hearts soft, and a person should be more concerned about his own self. And as Al-Hasan al-Basri rahimahullah, he said, if people in the janazah and so on, the unseen is lifted and they see what's happening, they won't care nothing about their loved one that died. They will be more concerned about themselves, right? But it's the mercy of Allah that things are hidden for us in this life, so that we can continue to live our life. This is not something that would make the person panic or anything. No, it makes the person steadfast on the deen of Allah, and that brings the joy. There's no way out of this. There's no choice. We're done. The person, once he reaches the age of puberty, he's either from the people of Jannah or the people of the hellfire. A person can deceive himself or deceive others and he think that he's being nice to others when we talk about matters of forgetfulness. People don't like to talk about the grave and the death and so on. But this is something coming no matter what. So either to take it serious, and if a person take it serious, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most merciful. Ibrahim subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is more merciful to the human being than his own self. So the fear is for the person to be steadfast, yes, but also to have good expectations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When the person is obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that things will be good, but not to be forgetful and to be away from the orders of Allah. So, and the Prophet ﷺ said, and in his hand, عود ينكت في الأرض, a stick that he was, doing something with it on the ground. When you're concerned about something, sometimes you would draw something on the ground or you move. It's a sign of concern and focus and khushu' and so on. And then the Prophet ﷺ lifted his head after looking at the ground for some time. And then he said to the people, to the companions radiallahu anhum, 2 times or 3 times, استعيذ بالله من عذاب القبر. Seek refuge in Allah from the punishment of the grave. He told them that 2 times or 3 times. So this is one of the ways to protect ourselves from the punishment of the grave, is to seek refuge in Allah. استعيذ بالله من عذاب القبر. Then he said, the Prophet ﷺ said, Al-Abd al-Mu'min, the slave, the believing slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he is leaving this dunya and is facing the hereafter, the angels come down unto him from as-sama, from the heavens. بيض الوجوه كأن وجوههم الشمس. Their faces is like the sun, how bright it is. And with them are kafan, or the coffin, or the thing that the dead is wrapped on with, from Al-Jannah, and fragrance from the fragrance of Jannah, till they sit with him or by him, mudd al-basar, which means as far as his eyes can see. And then Malak al-Maut comes by his head, and he sits by his head, and he would say, أيتها النفس الطيبة, O pure nafs or soul, اخرجي إلى مغفرة من الله ورضوان, come out to a maghfirah, forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and ridwan, the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فتخرج, then the soul comes out, تسيل كما تسيل القطرة من في السقاء, as the drop of water comes out from the bottle, how easy it comes out, drips very easy. So the same thing, the soul of the believers will come out that easy. فأخذها, so the angel of death will take it, and they won't let it, meaning the soul, the angels, they won't let it in the hands of the angel of the death, طرفة عين, a blink of an eye, unless they will take it from him. So the angel of death, his job is to take the soul from the body. Once he takes it, They don't leave it in his hand, they take it from him right away, and they would make it in this coffin from Jannah and the fragrance of Jannah, and comes from it the best fragrance ever that people would have on the face of earth, and they would take it to go high and ascend with this soul, and they would pass on, every time they pass on a group of the angels, unless the angels would say, "Ma hada al-ruh al-tayyib," what is this blessed and pure soul? And they would say, "Fulan ibn Fulan," so and so, the son of so and so, with the best names that they used to call him in the dunya, till they reach the sama' dunya, this sky or this heaven, the first one of this dunya, and they would ask for it to be open, to go to what's beyond, and it will be open to them, and every sama', every sky or every heaven, the angels of it will, like parading it, taking it like a parade, but I don't know if it's a correct word to say that, يشيعونه, that means they go with it from one heaven to the other, till they reach the seventh one. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would say, "Iktubu kitab abdi fi iliyin," write the kitab or the book of deed of my slave in the highest level, and bring him back to the earth, because from it I created them, and from it I would return them, and from it I would resurrect them again from the earth. So his ruh, his soul, would come back to his body. And then the Prophet said, فَيَأْتِيهِ مَلَكَانِ, then the two angels would come to him. فَيُجْلِسَانِ, they would make him sit. And say, "Man Rabbuk," he would say, "Rabbi Allah." Who is your Lord? Rabbi Allah. "Ma dinuk," what is your deen? He would say, "Dini al-Islam." "Ma hada al-rajul alladhi bu'itha fikum," what is the man that was sent among you? He said, "Huwa Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam." So they would tell him, "وَمَا عِلْمُكَ," what is your knowledge? He would say, "قَرَأْتُ كِتَابَ اللَّهِ فَأَمَنْتُ بِهِ وَصَدَّقْتُ," I recited the book of Allah and I believed in it and I followed, or I made truthful meaning and followed it. Then a caller would call in the heavens, "And صدق عبدي," my slave is truthful, فَأَفْرِشُوهُ مِنَ الْجَنَّةِ, meaning that give him the path to Jannah and make him wear from Jannah, and if open a door for him for Jannah, to Jannah, and then from its fragrance and goodness will come to it, and his grave will be extended for him as far as his eyesight can see, and a man with a good face, good clothing, good smell would come to him, and he would say, "Abshir billadhi yasurruk," have the glad tidings of what would make you happy, give him the glad tidings, this is the day that you have been promised. So he would say to him, "Who are you?" Your face is the face that brings with all means of goodness. He would say, "Ana amaluka salih," I'm your righteous deeds. So he would say, the man would say, "Rabbi aqim as-sa'a hatta arji' ila ahli wa mali." Oh Allah, make the hour comes in the day of judgment so that I can go back to my wealth and my family. Then the Prophet ﷺ said, as for the Abd al-Kafir, to the disbeliever, if he's about to leave this dunya and to face the hereafter, the angels come from the heavens, سُودُ الْوُجُوهِ مَعَهُمُ الْمُسُوحِ, they are very dark faces and they have the same way it was for Jannah, they would have the musuh with him, which is basically a rotten coffin and so on, and they would sit with him with al-basar, as far as his eyes can see, and then the angel of death comes and he sits by his head, and he'd say, "Ayatuha nafsul khabitha," total opposite, "Oh you wicked and evil soul, come out to the anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the punishment." قال فَتَفَرَّقُ فِي جَسَدِهِ, his soul would تفرق, meaning run away, does not want to come out, will be all over the place in his body. فَيَنْتَزِعُهَا, then the angel of death will take it out by force, like the iron is taken out from the wet wool, it tears it, right? And he would take it and they won't leave it with him in his hand for a blink of an eye, till they make it in this rotten coffins and so on, and the worst smell would come out from it, the worst smell on earth, and they would take it high, and every time they pass by a group of angels, they would see, what is ma hada ruh al-khabith, what is this wicked and evil soul, and they would say, "Fulan ibn Fulan," so and so, the son of so and so, with the worst names ever that they used to be called in this world, and they would ask for for opening of the first heaven. It would not be given to them. And the Prophet ﷺ recited the ayah in Surah Al-A'raf, فَلَا تُفَتَّحُ لَهُمْ أَبْوَابُ السَّمَاءِ وَلَا يَدْخُلُونَ الْجَنَّةَ حَتَّى يَلِجَ الْجَمَلُ فِي سَمِّ الْخِيَاطِ, that the skies would not, the gates of it would not be open to them, and they would never enter Jannah till the camel they pass through the the needle opening or whatever. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would say اكتبوا كتابه في سجين في الأرض السفلى. Write his book in the lowest level of the earth, and it will be thrown فتطرح روحه طرحا. It will be thrown in a very forceful way. And Allah and the Prophet ﷺ recited وَمَا يُشْرِكْ بِاللَّهِ فَكَأَنَّمَا خَرَّ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ فَتَخْطَفُهُ الطَّيْرُ أَوْ تَهْوِي بِهِ الرِّيحُ فِي مَكَانٍ سَحِيقٍ. Whoever associate partners with Allah as if he fell from the skies, as that will happen to him. So his soul will come back to his body in the grave, and the angels will come and they will make him sit, and they will ask him, مَنْ رَبُّكَ مَا دِينُكَ مَنْ الرَّجُلُ الَّذِي بُعِثَ فِيكُمْ, and he would say each time, هَا لَا أَدْرِي, I do not know. And then a caller would call from the skies, and kadab, he is a liar. Give him a passage to the hellfire, and a gate from the hellfire will be opened for him, and comes to him from the hellfire its heat and its evil things and so on, and it will be made very tight on him till his joints will be all mixed together. And a man with an ugly face will come to him, ugly clothes, very rotten smell, and he would say, أبشر بالذي يسوءك. Have the glad tidings of what would harm you and evil for you. This is your day that you have been promised. He would say, who are you? He said, فوجهك وجه يجيء بالشر. Your face comes with evil. He said, أنا عملك الخبيث. I'm your evil actions. So he would say, رب لا تقم الساعة. Oh Allah, do not make the hour comes as a result of what he sees. Also the Prophet ﷺ said in the authentic hadith about the disbelievers, إنهم لا يعذبون في قبورهم. They are being punished in their graves. ولولا ألا تدافنوا. If it wasn't that you would be buried, I would make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He would make you hear something of the adab or the punishment in the grave, the one that I'm hearing, الذي أسمع. Right? So this is, many things are happening, but we can't see it because it's the unseen to us. And that's why it's knowing this is a matter of belief, and at the same time it should affect our life in which that we would make our decisions accordingly, and never be deceived by the adornment of this life that if it's against the orders of Allah, but being steadfast on the deen of Allah, and actually be in joy when we are obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because as we said, the real happiness is not the happiness with intoxications that a person doesn't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You just want to enjoy it today, like little kids sometimes like this, and they know there's a disaster that's going to happen tomorrow. It doesn't matter as long as they have fun now. The real happiness is when you know that there is something very serious is going to happen and you're happy. This is the real happiness, and that can never be achieved unless a person is obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is what tib al-nafs and the goodness of one's nafs that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would bestow on the believers when they are steadfast, when their obedience is to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, and their steadfastness and so on. If we talk about what are the reasons for the punishment of the grave, of course the major one, or the one that is of course the source of all evil in this life and in the hereafter, is shirk, associating partners with Allah, matters of disbelief and so on. But also the ummah of the Prophet ﷺ, Muslims, as it's mentioned in the hadith, that they also will be, some of them will be punished in the grave. So it's not just for the disbelievers, but also for those who die in the state of al-Iman, die in the state of Islam, but they have a weakness in their Iman. As we said in matters of Aqidah, if a person dies on a state of complete Iman, no punishment in the grave, no punishment in the hereafter. This person is enjoyed forever. The person that dies with deficiency, weakness of his Iman, died as a Muslim, but his Iman is weak because of the sins, did not repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that person either will be forgiven, or he will be punished, and then eventually will enter Jannah. So the worst sin ever definitely is the shirk of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that's the worst injustice ever. But some of the hadith, very briefly, that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned specific actions, probably many of you have heard it before, that has a specific relationship with the punishment in the grave. One of which is, and this is not in a particular order, but the namima, or spreading, slandering others or rumors, with the intentions that a person would have people enemies to one another. Naql al-kalam is, namima is nothing but to convey, one another to another about what they said about them, about each other, with the intention to make them enemies to each other. That's worse than riba. Riba, backbiting, is when you talk about someone in their absence, about something true in them, but they don't, it's not a good thing, something that they won't like. And you say the truth and everything, it's a major sin. But what worse than this is that you want people to be enemies to another, so you would go to someone and say, that they said this about you, and you go to the other one, you say that, something also, so that they get angry with each other. That's why if somebody comes ever, as one of the early generations of Islam said, if someone comes to you, the one that you love the most, comes to you and tell you about someone else, that he said this about you, something bad, right? Never trust that person. Why? Because if he do that to you, right, he's doing that to others, and he should make him fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? It's different than warning you from someone that is going to hurt you, right? But you should remind him that he should fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and not to spread these things. And as the Prophet ﷺ, one time he passed by two graves, in this hadith in Bukhari and Muslim. فَقَالَ إِنَّهُمَا لَا يُعَذَّبَانِ وَمَا يُعَذَّبَانِ فِي كَبِيرٍ. They are being punished, and they're not being punished in something major, something big. It is big, but it's something that was very easy for them to avoid. Something that was very simple for them to avoid, but they didn't. ثُمَّ قَالَ بَلَى, meaning that it's a major sin, but it was easy for them to avoid. أَمَّا أَحَدُهُمَا فَكَانَ يَسْعَى النَّمِيمَ. One of them used to walk with the namima and slandering and so on. وَأَمَّا الْآخَرْ فَكَانَ لَا يَسْتَتِرُ مِنْ بَوْلِهِ. The other one, he used to not to be away from the eyes of people when he urinate, right? In another narration, لَكَانَ لَا يَسْتَنْزِهِ. He used to not to clean himself after urinating. And the other hadith, reported by Tabarani, and it's authenticated by Shaykh Almanara rahimahullah, the Prophet ﷺ said, تَنَزَّهُ مِنَ الْبَوْلِ فَإِنَّ عَمَّةَ عَذَابِ الْقَبْرِ مِنْ. Clean yourself from urine, because most of the punishment in the grave is from urine. Because if a person is not clean, his wudu then is affected, and accordingly the salah and so on. But we have to be careful, because this is the way of the shaitan to those who are worshippers. Those who avoid the worship of Allah, shaitan is taking them in another way. But once you want to make salah and wudu and so on, he will get you from this, so that he gets you the waswas, right? That you always, am I clean, am I not clean? And then if a person is not being careful of this, he would spend his whole day in the bathroom, making wudu and cleaning himself. Right? So we have to learn the rulings of this. And sometimes people, they have a condition in which a drop or something comes out after some time. So a person should not make it difficult for himself, because the religion is easy. And if a person has a condition that urine sometimes comes out all the time, then he just make dua, make wudu for every salah after the time of the salah starts, and then he makes salah. This is if he has a condition, physical condition of salas al-bawl, that the urine comes out without control. But other than that, with regards to breaking the wudu, it has to be with certainty. You cannot base an action based on doubt. You have to reach a level of certainty that you would say, Wallahi, something came out. Not maybe, maybe not. If it's doubt, you don't act on what's doubtful. But you have to make sure. And again, it's just a warning for those who do not care of these things and cleaning themselves and so on. Also, the Prophet ﷺ said, and it's more than one hadith, those in the battlefield, when they take something from the booty of the war, then it's not the right al-ghulul. When the Prophet ﷺ, he talked about someone that died, and it seemed like he died for the sake of Allah, but the Prophet ﷺ said that he's from the people of the hellfire. And they looked and they found that he took just a piece of upper garment, right? That it was not the right for him to take. Because of that small thing, this was the reason for him to be punished in the hellfire. So a person should never belittle matters of sins. Also, there is the long hadith where the Prophet ﷺ talked to the Sahaba about the ru'ya, or the dream that he saw, and the dreams of the Prophets are true. When he would ask the Sahaba always, who among you saw a dream and so on, and he would explain it to them. And the Prophet ﷺ, he talked about what he saw of what's happening to people in al-barzakh, in that state of the grave, or the transition state before the Day of Judgment. And he talked about people that get punished as a result of zina, fornication, where the Prophet ﷺ saw people, and underneath them they are in something like an oven, right? Where there's a fire from underneath them, and they would, once in a while, they would scream and jump up, and the fire is coming from underneath them, and they are naked and so on. And this is a constant punishment. This is before the Day of Judgment, for those who used to commit the act of zina, and also the one that, as he said, والسلام, when the two men came to him, and a man was sitting with, and there's a thing of iron or so, and it would saw his jaw, right, all the way till the back of his head, right, sewing like that to the back of his head, and then once it's finished, it comes back again, healed immediately, and then they do it again, and heals, and so on, and they continue to do this. And the Prophet ﷺ would say, "Ma hada," and they would tell him, "Talaq, go." And then he saw a man laying down on his back, and someone on his head with a rock, right? Breaks his head with it, and when he hit him with the rock would fall on him, and by the time it comes back again, his head is healed, and then he would do it again and continuously do that. And what we said about those who commit zina, and the one that the fourth one is when they went to a river of blood, and someone standing by the bank of the river, and someone in the middle of the river swimming in it, and he would come to the man by the bank of it, and he would give him a stone in his mouth, and he would go swim and come back, right? So the Prophet ﷺ asked, "What is this?" And then the matter was explained to him, and he was said, والسلام, as for the one that is his jaw is being sawed and so on, is the one that would lie, and the one lie will be taken حتى تبلغ الآفاق, till it reaches the east and the west, right? This sometimes in the past was made difficult, right? Now it's so easy. In a second, you can say a lie. You don't have to say it. You can just type it and hit enter, right? Or with a click of a mouse, or even no click whatsoever, just to do it, and you would find it reach the east and the west. And we are responsible for what we type, what we say, right? What we see, everything. And the sins became so easy, and at the same time, the good deeds are made so easy, right? So the good deeds are made so easy, and at the same time, the sins are made so easy. That's why it's very easy, extremely easy for a person to enter the hellfire, and very easy for a person to enter Jannah. And this is why just one line. And you see that it's the hadith and the ayat does not talk about someone destroying the whole earth or anything. It's just actions that are done on a daily basis that can be the reason for one's destruction and so on. And the one that his head gets broken by the rock all the time is the one that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala رجل علمه الله القرآن فنام عنه بالليل ولم يعمل فيه بالنهار. It was said in other narrations that he is someone that would sleep and miss the obligatory salah, mainly Fajr salah, right? This is his punishment till the Day of Judgment. In this narration, it's a very scary one. It's the one that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught him the Quran, and he would sleep at night and does not get up with the Quran, and he would not act on it during the day. So he's given the Quran, but he sleeps all night. And during the day, he does not act according to the Quran. If a person, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestowed his favor upon and made him learn the Quran, then his night should be different than others. He should get up at night and make salah, and he should not definitely be someone missing the obligatory salah, and he should act according to the Quran during the day. Somebody might say, well, then it's safer than not to get to study the Quran. I want to be on the safe side. Definitely this is not the way, because we know what is right and what is wrong. And this is the case when a person either want to choose to be in a low level or to elevate himself. Also, when it comes to matters of loans, dayn is a very serious situation. where the Prophet ﷺ would not pray janazah on someone that has a loan, unless someone, not just, I talked about this, is it enough for someone أن يتحمل الدين أم أن يؤديه؟ تحمل أم الأداء؟ If someone died and he has a loan. I'm not talking about riba. This is what was mentioned in the hadith, the man when swimming in the blood, this is the one that consumes riba, usually. And then we should not say, but what's the alternative? College education, my house, my car, my this, the hellfire. And if we find a solution, mashallah, this is great. And the solution is we should not deal with riba. That's the solution. Then with all these millions of Muslims, for example, here in America, they can't come up with something halal. Why? Because they're indulged in the haram. That's how easy it is. Because the haram becomes so easy for them. If it's forbidden and no alternatives, what's going to happen? Muslims will do something by the will of Allah. Right? They will do something. So, but because there's no nobody, or unless of course many people, they, mashallah, steadfast on matters of goodness and so on. But if someone is dealing with riba, we should not let the matter be weighted and so on. A person should immediately repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and never indulge into these things, because this is one of the destructive sins. And also, this is about the halal loans. If a person takes a loan from someone, right, but he didn't pay it back or so, he dies, someone, to be relieved from punishment or for being hostage after he dies, he's like hostage. He's not able to enjoy if there is joy for him, and if he's suffering, he's suffering. But if he has means of joy, either that he will be bothered or punished, or as a hostage, meaning before he would enjoy matters of the grave, the goodness and death, unless somebody would pay his loan. Not to say, it's on me. It's on me is not enough. Somebody would say, okay, I'll take care of his loans. Then he paid after a month. Throughout this whole month, he is not very happy, the one that is in the grave. Unless somebody would literally do it. And that's why if a person dies, the family, the inheritors and so on, the first thing that they should do, of course, to take care of his burial, but simultaneously with this, or right after that, is to pay off his loans. To make sure that there is no rights still on him after he dies, and this is something, of course, that a Muslim should do while he is still alive. And there's the hadith where Sa'd ibn al-Atwal radiallahu anhu, this is an authentic one, where his brother died and he left 300 dirhams. And he left children. So his brother wanted to spend the money on his children, which is a normal thing to be done. So the Prophet ﷺ told him, "Inna akhaka mahbusun bidayni." Your brother is in mahbus, is like when someone is in prison, is a hostage because of his loan. فَذْهَبْ فَقْدِ عَنْهُ. Go and pay off his loan. So he said, I went and I paid his loan, then I came back and I said, Ya Rasulullah, قَدْ قَضَيْتُ عَنْهُ إِلَّا دِينَارَيْنِ ادَّعَتْهُمَا امْرَأَةٌ. I paid all of his loan except $2. A woman claimed that she owes him this money. وَلَيْسَتْ لَهَا بَيِّنَةٌ. She doesn't have a proof. You said that she's supposed to take two and she does not have a proof. The Prophet ﷺ said, اعطيها فإنها محق. Give her because she truthful. The Prophet ﷺ knew that. And that's another issue. If a person doesn't, anybody can come and says, he owes me 1,000, give me 1,000. Of course, if they don't have a proof, the inheritors, they don't have to give him, right? But if it's truly the case, then he's in trouble. So that means what? We should not be shy when it comes to documenting and writing loans. People should not feel uncomfortable, say, you don't trust me, don't worry, I'll pay it off and so on. No, it's not about trust. It's about something like this. A person dies, people, all of them, they die, and there's the rights of others and so on. So this is a serious matter with the grave. إن الميت يعذب ببعض بكائه عليه. The Prophet ﷺ said that the deceased is punished as a result of the wailing or the crying of his family. If it's against the way of the Prophet ﷺ, when they wail or scream or they beat themselves and so on, he is punished as a result of that. Punished if he ordered them to do that, or if he knew that they're going to do this, and he did not say anything, did not forbid them, did not write this in his will. That's why if a person knows that his family do these types of things, he should write it in his will, order them, nobody is to do this after I die, and so on. And if he did this and they still did that, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most just. But still, as some of the ulama, they say, he will be bothered with it. Not like punished, torture. that he will be bothered with it as a result of their actions. One last hadith because of the time, and it's an authentic hadith. Many people, they sometimes think that the hadith is weak, but this is a sound hadith. It's a Hasan hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said, the mayyit إذا وضع في قبره, when he hears the footsteps of the people when they put him in his grave, till they leave, فإن كان مؤمنا كانت الصلاة عند رأسه. If he is a believer, the salah will be by his head. وكان الصيام عن يمينه, and fasting is on his right. وكانت الزكاة عن شماله, and zakah on his left. وكان فعل الخيرات, and the good deeds من الصدقة, from charity and الصلة, being kind to the relatives, and all kinds of goodness, والإحسان إلى الناس, and the good things to the people, عند رجليه, by his foot. فيؤتى من قبل رأسه, then he would be try to come from his head, meaning the punishment. فتقول الصلاة ما قبلي مدخل. The salah would say, there is no entrance from my end. From my side, he is secure, meaning because of the salah. وعند رجليه, it will be said, there is no passage from me. And the same thing from the siyam, it would say that, and the zakah would say that, and the matters of goodness would say that. And then it will be said to him, اجلس فيجلس وقد مثلت له الشمس وقد أدنيت للغروب. Then he will be said to sit down, and the sun will be made to him to as if it's closer to sunset. And it will be said to him, أرأيتك هذا الرجل, did you see this man that was among you? What do you say about him, and how do you witness about him? He would say, دعوني حتى أصلي. He would say, leave me till I pray. فيقولون إنك ستفعل أخبرني عما نسألك عنه. They will say to him, you will do so, but tell us, what would you say about this man that was sent among you, and so on. He would say, Muhammadun sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, ashhadu annahu Rasulullah. I bear witness that he is the messenger of Allah, and he came with the truth from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then it would be said to him, على ذلك حييت, on that you lived, وعلى ذلك مت, and on that you died, وعلى ذلك تبعث, and on that you will be resurrected, inshallah. Then a gate of Jannah will be opened, and so on. And this is closer to the meaning of the hadith that we said before. But the point of the hadith is that one's actions, right, this is the means of salvation and protection from the punishment of the grave. It comes and helps the person the most time that he is in need of it, and of course to seek and to make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to seek refuge in Allah from the punishment of the grave, especially after each tashahhud before the salam, as the Prophet ﷺ used to teach the Sahaba radiallahu anhu, especially before the salam in every salah. There are some other things, inshallah ta'ala, because of the time. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us from the punishment of the grave. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على محمد وصحبه وسلم.